Monsieur le Senator Farnham. Madame la Senator Ferguson.
Présente.
Monsieur le Senator Lafondre.
Présent.
Madame la Senator Valois.
Present.
Madame la Senator Moore.
Present.
Monsieur le Senator Pallet.
Présent.
Monsieur le Senator Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélier.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelade.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame la Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean. Madame la Deputy Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Southern.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy de Gruville.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Lewis.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Tadier. Monsieur le Deputy Higgins.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Masson. Madame la Deputy Pinel. Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Martin. Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Labby.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Wickenden.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Truscott.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Young.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Ash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Morel.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Guida.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de la Trinité. Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Legra.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Aye.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Pershard. Monsieur le Deputy Ward.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Alves.
Présente.
Monsieur le Deputy Pamplin.
Présent.
Madame la Deputy Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le doyen.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et la puissance de la terre, pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, donner-les que les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est accompagnée de la bénédiction. Réussisse au bien-être et au soulagement du peuple, qu'il de plus de commettre à la soin. Car nous t'en prions, au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils, bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous envoie point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi la règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen.
Monsieur le Senator Farnham.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Deputy Tadier.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Deputy Masson.
Excusez.
Madame la Deputy Pinel.
Excusez.
Monsieur le Deputy de Saint-Martin.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy de la Trinité.
Excusez.
Madame la Deputy Pêcheur.
Excusez.
Les états sont en nombre, Monsieur le Président.
Les états sont constitués. Very well. We now continue with the debate on P24, States of Jersey Development Company, appointment of a non-executive director. And I have Deputy Gardiner now to speak.
Thank you, sir. Before I speak, I noted that the Minister for Treasury and Resources, who is responsible for this proposition, is not present. I have several questions. Am I carrying on with the speech as it is, and somebody else will respond to the questions which will be raised in my speech?
Well, I can't answer that point, Deputy Gardiner, but it is for you now to speak on the matter. And one is to perhaps assume that either the Minister will be responding or she will have appointed someone, if she's unable to do so, to be rapporteur who will be listening. So
Sure.
If you would continue with your speech.
Sure, thank you. I believe that the proposed appointee, Caroline Dwyer, is incredibly multi-talented with.
I'm afraid if you're still speaking, we can no longer hear you, Deputy. You've become silent. Deputy, if you could indicate in the chat if you're still able to hear me. Deputy Gardiner. We'll move to the next speaker, and Deputy Gardiner I can invite Deputy Gardiner to speak when any of this particular problem has been solved. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I'll state first of all that I have no concerns about the particular person who's been put forward for this position, but like other deputies expressed yesterday, I am concerned at the level of payments that we are making to these appointments. It's not only things like the States of Jersey Development Company that annoy me, it's also bodies like the Jersey Financial Services Commission, where the people are being paid something in the order for £30,000 for 12 meetings. And I just find it extraordinary that, yes, they're well-qualified people and so on, but when we can't pay people a living wage in this island, I do find it totally unacceptable. And the other comment I will make is that I really question why we have the States of Jersey Development Company. And I give a warning to the government now. Please bring before the Assembly a cost-benefit analysis of this organisation, which were given land owned by the states free to develop. And I'd like to know exactly what they've actually contributed to the state's coffers over the years, and also what the level of remuneration has been in the time since it's been there, because I think the people who've benefited most are the directors of that company. And again, I do question the validity of having it. So therefore, sir, I will not be supporting the candidate, not a reflection on the candidate, but at my disgust at the States of Jersey Development Company. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to take up, like other speakers, from where my colleague Deputy Ward was yesterday with his quite extreme reaction, gut reaction to this appointment. Normally, these are called not them through, not ease. But this is important, it's significant. And what I want to do is illustrate when we in Reform Jersey bang on about income inequality and doing something about it. Let's just use this example to illustrate what that means. £22,000 for 15 days of work. As far as I know, the only other people employed by the states who get paid by the day are teachers on 180, 190 days per year. And if we're to do the equivalence between these two
sets of payments for this specialist and a, let's say, a secondary school teacher, we get, if they were on a parity, then we'd be paying our teachers £250,000 a year. That is a massive difference to what anybody can earn reasonably on this island. So when we talk about promoting income equality, we're talking those sort of figures and those sort of differentials. In this session, this assembly decided not to increase the minimum wage. This assembly has made absolutely very little progress in terms of a living wage, and until we do, we'll always be a lame economy. It's no wonder we can't recruit teachers, we can't recruit nurses, we can't recruit doctors, we can't recruit carers, personal carers. Our society is on its knees in terms of equality, and we really must do something about it. I should be voting against this award. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Higgins actually has stolen my thunder, because I was going to comment that at the last election in 2018, I was asked what I would do with the SOJDC. And frankly, I would dissolve the company because I have no idea why it's existing nowadays. I agree very much with the review of the necessity and rationale for the company. You know, when they have to adjust the profits by £4 million last May, you know, I do get a bit concerned. Deputy Southern compares a teacher with the working part-time as a director. Has he actually compared the numbers with states members? But also, it's a question of qualifications, I think, and abilities, and not every teacher has a list of accomplishments to compare with the lady who's being proposed. I mean, I would hope that with a director with a civil engineering degree, you know, with that, we might see some modern techniques incorporated into the building industry, which we're not getting at the moment. But that's by the by. I think, yes, no. So we have nothing against this lady. She's obviously competent. I like the idea that she's had some experience in working on airports and so on, because as far as I'm concerned, we don't need £42 million extensions and amendments and changes to the airport. We haven't got the amount of traffic coming through, unlike the 60s and 70s. So, you know, I think I don't know how I'm going to vote on this one. I mean, I think the lady has a lot of experience, some of which will be very useful, some of which is inappropriate for a small island. But I'd like to see some modern building. I'd like to see some modern building experience brought in, and I'd like to see a review of the rationale and necessity for the SOJDC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy Gardner, are you able to join us?
Sir, can I just interject here? Deputy Gardner is actually on her way to my house because I think she's having issues with her internet, and we live just around the corner, so she will be back on soon. Thank you, sir.
Very well. Well, we obviously can't stop the process of the debate, but it could be that she'll be with you in enough time to make her contribution. Deputy Doublé.
Thank you, sir. I'm still considering the issues that members have raised around the financial issues around this appointment, but I wanted to thank Deputy Pinnell because I had an exchange with her. I did ask for some additional information along the lines of looking at the makeup of the entire board in order to assess the diversity of said board. And I just wanted to clarify a point in relation to this appointment and all appointments, because I think we've had a couple of appointments recently which have been women, and whilst on a personal level I'm pleased to see women being appointed to these roles, it sometimes it comes across as look, we found a woman from somewhere and expecting me to be pleased just because there is a woman, and so it's missing the point slightly, because diversity is not about just getting more women onto boards, and certainly for me, sir, I champion all characteristics. And a board that was entirely composed of just women would not be a diverse board, and I would not support that any more than I would support a board that was entirely made up of men. So I'm grateful for Deputy Pinnell in a private exchange providing me with some further information on the makeup of the board in its entirety, and she has informed me that with this appointment there would be 2 women and 4 men non-executive directors. So that tells me that adding this particular person to the board does improve the diversity of the board, because at the moment the gender split is unequal. So that information helps me. So I hope that clarifies for other ministers the reasons why I think we need more information about the board generally, and not just information on the one person that we are appointing on any one day. So I will be considering the other issues that members have raised. I'm not sure how I will be voting, but the lack of diversity information is not going to be an issue for me today when I'm deciding my vote. And I thank Deputy Pinnell for that information, and I hope that it actually in slightly more detail, because it's not just about gender. I would like to see information about ethnicity, about possibly about disabilities and things like that. But I do understand that such information might need to be shared with states members in confidence, and I think that would be acceptable when we are thinking about these appointments. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Gardner, are you able to make your contribution now?
Yes, sir. Apologies, had a problem with the internet connection.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so I'll start from the beginning. I do believe the proposed appointee, Carlo Dwyer, has incredibly talented and impressive track record and will bring diversity to the board. My questions to the Treasury Minister related to the good governance and the policy decisions. I'm sure Minister familiar with the CNAG report, R56, States of Jersey Development Company from June 2020. I would like to bring members' attention and asking Minister about recommendation 16 in the CNAG report, which suggested to carry out benchmarking survey on board remuneration in 2020 and ensure that comparator groups are relevant and appropriate to the size and scale of the SOJDC business. This recommendation has been accepted and it should be done by the end of Q3 2020. My question, if this benchmarking survey has been carried out, and if yes, what has been found out, if this remuneration is according to the new survey that was carried out as 2020, if it was carried out. Second point, the minister is confident that the new non-executive director will provide a strong balanced skills, expertise and technical backgrounds that will help contribute to continued success of state's SOJDC. My question, did Minister had a conversation, any communication with the candidate, or Minister was just reassured by the officers to make sure that the Minister is confident? Another question, did the candidate spend time in Jersey, and if yes, how long? How many applicants were from Jersey? And the last question, if any credit given to the local knowledge during the application process? So actually, that's not the last question. If, just to be sure, if I'm correct, currently there are no Jersey residents or people with Jersey connection on the board of SOJDC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Connétabas and Brillard.
Thank you, sir. I have no difficulty with someone of the calibre of Carolyn Dwyer being appointed and would thank her for putting her name forward. Likewise, sir, I have no difficulty with private companies having non-executive directors at the sort of rates quoted, which can be benchmarked elsewhere. My problem, sir, is the fact that we're running an arm's-length property development company in parallel with our government-run property organisation. The nonsense of this has arisen over the debate regarding the state's offices, where a third player has been brought into the scenario. In conclusion, sir, whilst I will support this proposition, in so doing, I would ask the Minister to request that the Council of Ministers consider a proper review of our property management structures. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Connétable. Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And I just wanted to know through the interview process whether whether the Minister or her representatives in that interview actually turned to the performance of SOJDC in the questioning, and wondering whether Ms. Dwyer's views as to whether SOJDC is an appropriately performing company from the perspective of the states of Jersey. I ask these questions, sir, because SOJDC since 2012 has returned just £5.473 million to the states of Jersey in terms of cash dividends. It's also transferred £3.4 million in assets. But since 2012, the entire return to the states of Jersey is £17 million. You compare that to Andium Homes, which I know is a different business model, but Andium Homes is expected and does return £30 million per year to the states of Jersey. So I was wondering if the Minister would comment on whether Ms. Dwyer felt that States of Jersey Development Company was an underperforming company and not returning the appropriate returns to the states of Jersey. It's also noticeable that no cash dividends were paid to the states of Jersey in 2016, 17 or 18. I also find it interesting that since its actual formation in 1996 as the Waterfront Enterprise Board, I believe just over £70 million of crystallised benefit has been returned to the states of Jersey. So in 1996, that's 25 years, just £70 million, the whole total of the benefit to the states of Jersey, compared to Andium of £30 million per year, as well as the assets that Andium builds and obviously maintains on behalf of the states of Jersey. So yes, I was wondering what the views were of Ms. Dwyer in regard to the performance of SOJDC. Remember, this is SOJDC that also failed a government tender recently, and we were told it came in third place out of 3. So I was wondering if the Minister could respond to that. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Does any other member wish to speak on this proposition? Deputy St Peter.
Thank you, sir. There's a lot of very interesting points have been raised, the majority of which I can agree with. I think the management of our estates however large it is something like £3 billion. I can't remember all relevant, but it's huge. And the returns we get and the manage of it are, shall we say, somewhat lacking, put it politely. However, what we're here today is to approve a board member as a result of P73, i.e. the adoption of States of Jersey Development Company. And within that, we need to have non-executive directors to advise. And I feel that that having this debate at the expense of the applicant is really undermining her. It is not a trivial task to apply to be a non-executive director. The approval process supervised or authorised by the Jersey Appointments Commission is not trivial in itself, and we should be appreciative of people who wish to give of their skills to this island in the capacity that we've asked them to do. If we don't like that role, if we don't like the makeup of the States of Jersey Development Company, then we come back to the Assembly and we ask to rescind that, or we bring propositions to a different effect. But I feel going through this process with this very talented lady in the public domain is unnecessary, and she's being used as a sideshow for other matters. So I think we ought to just get on, approve this, and decide what we want to do as an Assembly about the States of Jersey Development Company, if that is an appropriate course of action. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy St. Peter, can I echo the points that have been made in the chat? The chat is not a sideline for a speech or points to be made in the debate. It's dealing purely with procedural matters, requests to the chair and things of that nature. If anyone wants to make a point of debate, they make it in open debate before the Assembly and not in the chat, please. The Deputy St. Mary.
Thank you, sir. I would like to align myself to with the comments made by the Deputy St. Peter just now, sir. This is not the forum where we should be discussing the merits or otherwise of a particularly good candidate for this position. And I'm sure I'm not the only States member, sir, who is almost embarrassed by this ritual which happens every time we do have a appointment of this nature. And I simply ask the Treasury Minister to consider whether there is a better way of dealing with this in the future, whether detailed considerations should be given, if not already by the Appointments Board, maybe to a particular new body to be set up to look at these, to consider diversity in that context, and so that the personal nature of the appointment can be taken away from this public forum. So I do invite the Minister to comment on that in her response. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy Senator Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The previous speaker spoke about the potentially embarrassing situation we're in when we debate these points over and over again in these instances. And I have to tell him that the reason it keeps happening is because the government aren't listening. The fact is that many of us feel embarrassed about the fact that we make these sorts of appointments on these very, very large salaries for very few days of work and are expected to simply nod that through. Yet earlier this week, we can have a very long and substantial debate and conclude at the end of it that there are hundreds of people in Jersey who aren't even worthy of a living wage. And that's why this debate has happened. I think it's symbolic, actually, of the out of touch and blasé attitude that the government often has to these sorts of issues, and that it becomes an issue like this rather than being dealt with outside of the Assembly for us to consider how we think the SOJDC should operate and how its appointment process should be run. But this has hit a nerve because of, I think, bad timing, because of what happened earlier this week, and that ought to rest on the consciences of those who are oh so happy to give somebody not connected to Jersey a substantial amount of remuneration for very few days' work. They're not doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, sir. They're doing it for remuneration. Yet those hundreds of people who we represent as our constituents aren't even worthy of a living wage and should settle for a poverty wage imposed on them by their employers in collusion with a government that doesn't see them as worth more than that. That's why we're here, sir, and I'll be voting against the proposition to send the government that message.
Deputy Wickenden.
Thank you, sir. Always say, never let the truth get in the way of the rhetoric. Sir, I think it's clear, this has been mentioned plenty of times now, that this Assembly voted against raising the minimum wage. I think it's fair to say the actual truth of it is that The
Deputy Wickham, a point of order is raised.
Thank you, sir. What was the speaker just now suggesting that a member was misleading the Assembly and lying? He said, "Don't let the truth get in the way of rhetoric." Is he implying that somebody spoke in an untruthful way? Because that would surely be against standing orders.
I didn't understand the deputy's statement to mean that, but Deputy Wickenden, presumably that's not your intention. It was a rhetorical statement you were making rather than a suggestion that any member was actually lying.
It was rhetorical, but if the senator would let me finish my speech, then maybe he would work out what I was talking about, sir.
Well, the senator was perfectly entitled to raise a point of order to have the matter clarified by the chair. It's nothing wrong with that, Deputy, but now it's been clarified. You're perfectly at liberty to continue with your speech.
Sir, I was saying the Assembly didn't vote against raising the living wage in this week's debate. They voted on a majority to allow the Social Security Minister continue a review into the living wage. So rather than choosing an arbitrary figure picked out of the air, that there was proper information about what a living wage could be looked like, what a minimum wage could be looked at, what the makeup of the employment forum would look like, who would be on it. That's what the Assembly has voted for. It didn't vote against something, it voted in favour of something, sir. If we're going to go down the route of party politics like this that says we didn't get our way, so we're going to stop doing what you want and we're going to vote against your stuff, then we're going to really get to the worst parts of party politics that we see many times in other parliaments in the UK and around the world. I thought we weren't in that position, and I'm disappointed. I feel sorry that we have to put these applicants that put themselves forward through this process in the Assembly. I don't know why anyone would want to come and work for us if we have to keep putting them through this situation and drag them through this public forum. I think it's unfair. I think it should be changed, sir. I will be supporting it. The candidate is highly qualified and I think brings an awful lot in with experience in areas that we haven't seen before, that's really going to make public realm changes, because that's her specialty, which is what everyone in this Assembly is looking for as well, which is better public realm for islanders to use, not just building flats. I absolutely support this candidate, and I absolutely cannot believe sometimes what things that are said in this Assembly, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister of Treasury and Resources to respond.
Thank you, sir. This debate on this appointment has taken quite a considerable amount of time, so I shall attempt to be brief in my summing up. I'll start with Deputy Ward, who spoke yesterday, who was complimented or repeated by Deputy Sutherland, Senator Mezek to some extent, in the complaint about the perceptibly high salary. This salary is a going rate for a non-executive director. In particular, SOJDC, it has not increased since 2018, and the contract says a minimum of 15 days. And in my experience of NEDs, having appointed quite a few, they invariably input far more time than the minimum of their contract. So from that point of view, I hope that answers some of the questions. A couple of members asked, Deputy Young being one of them, as to the composition of the board. I know Deputy Dublé did as well, but from a residential point of view, the board currently comprises 5 Jersey residents and 2 directors who are non-Jersey residents. And one of the reasons for extending this to a non-Jersey resident is the risk of the board becoming too insular if it was all Jersey residents. So I hope that answers that question. And I wanted to thank Deputy Doublé as well for asking about the composition of the board, and I agree with her that this information should be made available to the Assembly, even if it is in confidence. I will certainly, as far as Treasury and Exchequer go, I will ask for that to happen. Deputy Southern, I've already addressed about the 15 days. Deputy Higgins and Senator Ferguson again turned the appointment, which was what this debate is all about, into a discussion about States of Jersey Development Company and whether it was necessary. And I don't think this is the right forum, as was said, for a discussion about the merits or not of the company. Deputy Gardner asked about the CNAG report, and yes, the review has been carried out. I think her second question was, have I met Ms. Dwyer? No, I haven't, because she was, all the candidates were interviewed by the Berwick Partners, who are the recruitment agency. So that was their recommendation to me, which I accepted in order to bring it to the Assembly. The role itself attracted a significant amount of interest from candidates, both in Jersey and other locations, and a small number of candidates either based in Jersey or with connection to the island were longlisted by the board for interview, which, as I mentioned, are our search consultants who have a particular focus and expertise in this sector. I've already mentioned the residency of the current board. Conital Jackson, a review of property management companies. I shall take that forward. I think I've answered Deputy Morell's question about the performance of SOJDC and the return in investment, but this debate is not about that. It's about a candidate with incredibly skill matching for what we require in Jersey and realm development. I think Deputy Hewlin mentioned that the candidate has been selected for her skill set, which, as you will see from the appendix to the proposition, is very considerable. And I think both Deputy Hewlin and the Deputy for St Mary said that the forum for discussion of the merits of the company is not applicable in this proposition. And just for some reassurance to the Assembly, I hope that all the arm's length organisations' memorandum of understanding are all being reviewed as we speak. 2 have been completed and the rest are almost completed. So the companies are being overseen and the MOUs being altered if necessary. I think I've got everybody apart from Deputy Wickenden, and I agree with the sentiments he expressed. We should not be dragging extremely competent candidates through such public criticism. It's rather embarrassing that my fellow members have done that. Anyway, with that, sir, I hope I've answered all the questions. There were quite a lot, and as I apologised for, I did miss the first 2 questions because I couldn't get the sound. So with that, sir, I make the proposition.
Thank you very much. Minister, I ask the greffier to put a voting link into the chat. I open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 35 votes pour, 7 votes contre, 1 abstention. Contra and the abstention?
Those members who voted contra were Deputy Ward, Deputy Southern, Constable St Saviour, Deputy Morrell, Senator Mezek, Deputy Higgins and Deputy Alves, and the abstention was Deputy Young.
Very well. The next item is the draft COVID-19 Amendments Extension and Suspension Jersey Regulations P25 lodged by the Minister for Health and Social Services. For the purposes of this debate, the main respondent will be the Chair of the Health and Social Services Scrutiny Panel, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft COVID-19 Amendments Extension Suspension Jersey Regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Article 2 of the COVID-19 Enabling Provisions Jersey Law 2020.
Minister.
Sir, these draft regulations set out the arrangements proposed for the further extension of the treatment of the emergency legislation we have needed to manage the COVID pandemic. Some of that legislation is suspended until orders are made to give it effect, but some is also in use today, an example being our arrangements at the borders. Last September, we extended the legislation to the 30th of April, which of course expires in just 8 days, or perhaps a bit less. And therefore, if approved, these regulations further extend the legislation to the 31st of October 2021, a period of 6 months. So the majority of this legislation has previously been extended by the Assembly last September with a few additional items, which included regulations on gatherings, enhanced arrangements for workplaces, which included mask wearing, and I'll talk about that later, and revised arrangements for care homes. I do acknowledge this is a complicated piece of legislation, but I understand from members following the previous extension in September that the Assembly appreciated the opportunity in the proposition to see an overview of all the emergency legislation rather than bring the individual and various items in a piecemeal fashion. So I've tried to provide members with the same overview here, using broadly the same format in the report and the law for consistency. The main objective of these regulations is to ensure that all these disparate pieces of legislation are treated in a consistent manner, with powers relinquished to the greatest possible degree where it is safe to do so, and to the degree that it is safe to do so. I wish to remind members that before any powers are exercised under these regulations, there are a number of requirements. Firstly, that I as Minister must be satisfied that any order is necessary and proportionate, having regard to the foreseeable risk of spread of infection. Secondly, that I must take advice from the Medical Office of Health. And thirdly, that I must consult with the Council of Ministers. So whilst COVID-19 is currently under good control in Jersey, transmission remains an issue globally and in jurisdictions with which Jersey has close connections. The ongoing risk of further outbreaks does preclude a full return to normality at this time. However, there is no desire to restrict the lives of islanders unnecessarily should the situation remain stable. And it would not be appropriate for government to keep the unprecedented powers that have been required to combat the pandemic close to hand for an indefinite period. Therefore, the proposal before members is for another time-limited extension of these powers to the 31st of October 2021. And of course, I'm sure it's the hope of all of us that after that time, we will move to a situation where those powers are no longer necessary, or if indeed some are necessary, that they will be much reduced. The date of 31st of October has been chosen because we recognize the precedent for the approximately 6-month periods of extension that have previously been set, starting in March 2020, when the first regulations were introduced. And there was a further extension, as I've said, from October last year to April 2021. We consider 6 months to be a reasonable period for extension. It does not seem an unduly long time to retain some limited emergency powers, and the timing should allow the Assembly to consider the ongoing need for this legislation before this coming winter, in the light of the prevailing circumstances at the time and the progress of the vaccination programme. So I just wish to say a few words about the issue of mask wearing, which does form part of these regulations. It forms part of the workforce restrictions regulations, but only part of those regulations. And I know members are receiving communications from members of the public about, well, basically saying, why do we still need to wear masks? And I'm receiving the same. And I can tell members that that issue is presently under consideration by the Medical Office of Health and public health officers, who will be advising me. And I undertake to, in turn, advise state members of that conclusion. At the moment, STAC have not recommended, I don't believe they've deeply considered any change to the legislation or the orders. So it is important at the moment still to be wearing masks in indoor public spaces. We recognised yesterday in our debate that we still have a threat to face with COVID, and we must not let down our guard. Mask wearing is recognised as an effective mitigation combined with others when people are gathering together in uncontrolled places. That review I've spoken of, sir, will include the question of students wearing masks in schools and also staff, I'm sure. So this matter is under consideration. It's not an issue for today, I would suggest, because what the proposition before members does is offer a choice either to extend the whole of the regulation governing workplaces or not. It's not possible to dig down into the different parts of the regulation and have a debate simply on the wearing of masks. And indeed, I think any such debate would be premature at this stage. I acknowledge that there seems to be research out there that says wearing masks is ineffective and not good for us. But at the same time, there's ample research to the contrary. And this is a matter that we need advice upon, and advice is being sought. Therefore, sir, at this stage, I would like to propose the principles and ask for members' support. Thank you, sir.
Very much, Deputy. Are the principles seconded?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. A point has been raised in the chat as to whether I should properly preside over the continuation of the debate on this particular matter, because it does touch on regulations which deal with my power. I think regulations 19 at the end. Although I don't think, as these have been given to me by the Assembly, there is any strict difficulty, out of an abundance of caution, I will ask the greffier to take over presiding over this particular piece of legislation.
Thank you, sir. Before you depart, I wasn't clear from the chat who made that comment, and just for transparency.
Is it not in front of you in the chat?
It is, sir, but no, there's no identification of the person asking.
Oh, no, that's because it follows on from the chat immediately before. Deputy Ward raised the question and he then added a paragraph thereafter.
I understand.
So may I say it was genuinely intended to be helpful and
no, Deputy, I didn't think it was anything other than that, and as I say, although I don't think there is a difficulty, there is no reason out of abundance of caution why I need to preside over this when the greffier is available and able to do it. Very well.
Does any member wish to speak on the principles?
So the principles are not yet seconded.
I think they were seconded.
Oh, I
They have been
apologise.
seconded. Does any member wish to speak on the principles? If no member wishes to speak on the principles, I will ask the greffier if he's ready to place a...
So,
Deputy Ward, you're late off the mark.
sorry, sir. In terms of the principles, I don't know if this is, I think this is relevant to the principles, and I would just like to ask the Minister regards the use of the word suspended, as to how quickly a regulation that is suspended could be reenacted, because I believe, and again a genuine question here for understanding, I believe that suspended means they survive in the background and can be reinstated at a given point. And I just wanted some clarity as to when the mechanism, that's the word, the mechanism for reinstating any regulation that has been suspended. It's just some clarity on that. I do hope that question makes sense for the Minister, because I understand how complicated these regulations are. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak. Then I will close the debate and ask the Minister to respond.
So the mechanism is the making of an order by a minister. Not all these regulations concern myself as Health Minister, but Home Affairs Minister, Environment Minister, Children's Minister are involved also in regulations. But yes, it is simply the making of an order, reviving the regulation. And of course, as I've said before such an order is made, the Minister has to be satisfied it's necessary and proportionate to do so, must seek the advice of the Medical Officer of Health, and must consult with the Council of Ministers. And that is the procedure that would be followed. Unless it was a real emergency, I imagine also, well, members will know that we make efforts to consult scrutiny panels and conduct States members briefings so that they might be aware of the changes that are being made. I hope that helps, sir.
Thank you very much. There may be a little delay due to the sudden change in arrangements, but I'll ask the greffier to put a link to the vote on the principles on P25 in the chat channel. The link is available, so I'd ask members to cast their votes. Members have had the opportunity to cast their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. Principle has been adopted, 42 votes for, no votes contra, no abstentions. Minister, there are 20 regulations. How do you want to handle them?
Well, sir, I
sense that members might not want me to pursue at length the description of each regulation. And I would be minded to propose the regulations all of them en bloc, and if members wish to ask me any particular questions about individual regulations, I will try and address that in my response, if that's acceptable to members. So I propose en bloc.
Thank you. The regulations seconded.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
Deputy Doublé.
So could I ask a question, please, about the regulations? And I just wanted to clarify, I believe it's Regulation 5 that covers mask wearing in schools, and I would like to vote on that separately. Is that going to be possible, please?
That is possible. Do you want to speak to the article? Do you want to the regulation? Do you want to say something about it?
Yes, please, if I may. I wanted to just speak briefly about mask wearing. We have had an email exchange and a very helpful email from a member of the public who is a medical practitioner outlining some of the harms that are being caused by masks. And while I can see perhaps why, on balance, at this time, mask wearing in some circumstances in the wider community may still be the right thing to do, I believe, looking at the evidence that has been presented by this medical practitioner and also hearing concerns that have been raised with me and I believe with other members and ministers by parents who are concerned that children are wearing masks for up to 7 hours a day while they are learning at school, and believing that it's not appropriate and indeed it's harmful for children to be having to do this at this time. So I did raise a question on Tuesday of the Chief Minister in his capacity as Education Minister at this time around the reconnection strategy in relation to schools. And I mean, members will have seen at the time on Tuesday, I was really quite disappointed at the response of the Chief Minister at the time, because it seems that the impact on children of these COVID measures has not actually recently been reviewed, and in fact it seems that it's just being left to continue without reflecting on the impact on children. Now I strongly believe that we need to reflect at this point. In fact, I'm currently leading a scrutiny review into the impact of the pandemic measures on children. So actually, if there are any parents listening and they're interested in this issue, I would urge them to contribute to that review. But what I wanted to hear from the Health Minister, I welcome the Health Minister's commitment actually to over emails that to actually look further into this matter, and I think he's just said it this morning as well. But I want to hear further from him on why this hasn't been reviewed further, and I want some reassurance actually that it's not going to take prompting from the States Assembly for children's needs to be taken into account. You know, I kind of trusted that that was happening as a matter of course, and it seems that it hasn't been, although we're regularly reviewing the needs of our economy. I want to see that children's needs are being put first and that their needs are being regularly reviewed. So that's the commitment I would like from the Health Minister, please, sir. And given that the evidence that I've seen doesn't actually support mask wearing in schools, I'm considering voting against Article 5, Regulation 5, sorry, because yes, I haven't seen that it's necessary in schools anymore, given that children do not spread the virus to the same extent as adults, given our case numbers are so low, and given the weight of the evidence of the harm that it's causing children. And yeah, I would like the Minister to respond on that, please, and I will consider how I vote. Thank you.
Minister, before we carry on, can I just make sure that Regulation 5 is the one that deals with mask wearing in schools?
No, I regret it doesn't, sir, and I can explain. Perhaps
we could treat this as a point of clarification in that case, because we're mid-debate.
Very well, sir.
Yes,
Regulation
please, I
5.
would like to clarify from the minister's email exchange where he specified regulation 5. So if I could request a clarification, that would be very
Well,
helpful.
I think the minister's request some clarification, an intervention to clarify at this point, but whatever we do it, he's going to speak and tell us more about
Thank you, sir. Yes, I did say that this is complex. So yes, I did say in my email it was Article 5. Article 5 proposes the extension of the workplace restrictions regulations, and that is the only regulation that deals with mask wearing as regulation, in other words, as legislation. And there's a long list in that regulation of the places where mask wearing is required as a matter of law. But in fact, mask wearing in schools is not law. It is a matter of guidance, I understand. I'm just checking my emails. That's right. It's a matter of SIPE's policy and has never been part of the workplace regulations or any other regulation. And that, in fact, that is expressly mentioned in the regulation, the workplace restrictions order. Workplace restrictions order that I made says that essentially masks must be worn in workplaces, but workplaces, the part of the regulation I'm looking at says a workplace is close contact premises if it is a building that is neither a school nor daycare accommodation within the meaning of the Daycare of Children Jersey Law 2002. So that excludes schools from the ambit of the regulation itself. And the question of wearing masks in school has come forward as a matter of SIPE's policy. And the deputy has asked, why hasn't that been reviewed? I believe that SIPE's has regularly been reviewing provisions in schools. But of course, I am not the minister who can answer for that at this stage. But I've said that mask wearing in schools is a matter of review, and advice is being sought at the moment, sir.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
That's helpful. I don't want to stray into a second speech, but I think that's an appropriate clarification. Constable St Saviour, it's not. We can't ask a question at this point. You could make a speech, or you could seek a clarification of what the minister has just said.
No, sir. I'll leave it. I want to ask a question, but thank you.
So I didn't hear that clearly, I'm afraid, Constable.
Sorry, sir. No, I had a question that I wanted answered, and so I do not wish to make a speech. Thank you very much.
Okay. I will move on to Deputy Wickenden.
Thank you, sir. I just think I could help here. In education, we have been taking advice from Public Health and Dr. Ivan Muscat. That's where we're getting our policy, which regard to mask wearing in schools. I can inform the Assembly that we are constantly reviewing it. There's a new review happening right now that with Public Health, which is about mask wearing in schools. It's about mixing class bubbles. It's about school trips. So it's all constantly being reviewed. But I hope next week to have a better update on the advice we're getting from Public Health and Dr. Ivan Muscat, and whether the policies we have in place will be changed next week, but it is constantly being reviewed. It is being reviewed again right now in relation to where we are, which is in such a good place, and I will have an update for the deputy, and I'll let the deputy know as soon as I possibly can what the outcome of that consultation with the Public Health is.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on the regulations? Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Just a couple of things for the Minister. I think it's Regulation 6 that states in there that the consultation with the Council of Ministers. I just want to ask, and this is a general question, whenever this arises, I think it needs to be clarified, what consultation means. Is that just simply informing the Council of Ministers, or is it a vote is taken? And if a vote is taken, is it a majority outcome, or is it wanted to be a unanimous agreement, for example, and who has the casting vote? I think it's important if the Council of Ministers to be involved in extension of any COVID restrictions, we know the mechanism by which that decision is made. Also in Regulation 8, it was really just to confirm the suspension of, and sorry, so just forgive me because I'm scrolling through, means that current regulations do not apply to any service which delivers care to under 18s. The allowed deviations from normal procedure are more limited. Under 18, so I would ask a question regards care leavers who may be offered support in their homes, who may be over 18 or may be living somewhere, who are over 18, whether that means that they the regulations don't extend to them, which I think is quite important, because we define a child as not necessarily just under 18. There has been a positive move there. Regulation 17, the end of life regulation, are we saying that the process by which it wasn't necessarily the deceased GP who signed the death certification, which was a slight concern for some, and I know there was a team set up with a horrendous job to do, but I'm sure they did it well. But that isn't happening anymore, and that has been suspended. I just want to confirm that, because I agree with the Minister, these are complicated. I think it's very important that we understand them. And in terms of marriages, how many can attend marriages now, just to confirm, because I'm trying to pick through the regulations here to get a number. And that was it, I think, sir, in terms of questions regards to regulations. And just on outdoor events, can the Minister confirm what's happening? And I have to declare an interest here regards live music in outdoor events. From the 2nd of May, I believe, it is allowed outdoors, public music with particular risk assessments being given with it. But can the Minister confirm whether that is the case and whether these regulations how they would affect that? So I hope that's a comprehensive set of questions. Thank you very much.
Deputy Ward, you said you had to declare an interest, but you didn't say what it was.
It's just so that I play live music outdoors, and I'm looking forward to doing it again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy Higgins.
Again, sir, I'm going to ask a question, but again, I have to declare an interest. Obviously, as the organizer of a very, very large event, the Air Display, I would like to know as well from the Minister what regulations are being placed on large-scale events. The reason I ask this is that not only the Air Display, but other large-scale events take months, if not years, in preparation, and we need to know as soon as possible. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak on the regulations? Well, if no other member wishes to speak, I will call on the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I'll do my best. So Deputy Ward has asked, what does consultation with the Council of Ministers mean? And I think, first of all, so I think we need to begin with an understanding that the legal power to make orders implementing the regulations vests in individual ministers. The Council of Ministers has no legal authority to do so. It is the ministers as corporations sole. But of course, throughout the pandemic, we have tried to work together and provide a governmental response to this. So consulting with COM means that any proposals having gone through STAC and received advice from the Medical Office of Health and proposed by the Minister go to a Council of Ministers meeting for discussion and, yes, a vote sometimes, well, yes, a consensus on whether that measure can be supported. But it is not the Council of Ministers making the decision, because that lawfully that decision rests in the Minister. So technically the Minister could go off and disregard a view of the Council of Ministers, but no Minister is going to do that. And of course there are safeguards in broader legislation, in that, of course, if I was to do anything stupid like that, then the Chief Minister could immediately dismiss me or withdraw my power to make that sort of frolic of my own. So there are safeguards built in if I suddenly decided in a fit of pique to go off and disregard all the advice that I was receiving. Likewise, other ministers. So consultation is effective. It means that we provide a governmental response, and there is a general agreement around the table as to the way it proceeds. So in answer to Deputy Ward's other questions, the one about children over 18 is a point of detail. That was Regulation 8, I believe. Let me just see what notes I have on that. So it is the case that these regulations don't apply to children. So children's services operate with all the safeguards that have always existed. These are regulations relating to standards of care in services governing adults, and generally they're there to allow services to continue to operate in the event that a large number of staff were required to isolate. And the Jersey Care Commission is involved. The Jersey Care Commission always has to give a permission for the service to continue in those circumstances, and they are the regulator in this instance. So I imagine if a person over 18 was in care in some way, it is possible that these regulations might one day be reactivated. They are going to be suspended at the moment, and we hope never to reactivate them. But of course, all the safeguards would be followed, and the Jersey Care Commission would be involved. I think that's the best I can offer at the moment on that issue. On the death management regulation 17, we are back to normal, sir, in that any GP can now sign a death certificate. Under marriages, any number can attend a marriage ceremony, I understand, subject to the premises wishing to follow safe distancing guidance. So there may be practical limitations, but there's no legal limitation on attending the ceremony. For the time being, I understand that there is a restriction under the gatherings regulation of 50 people attending a wedding reception or a funeral wake. That's my present recollection, because that's defined as a private event. Outdoor events, sir, from the 2nd of May. Essentially, that will all be reduced to guidance now. There is no legal requirement to keep 2 meters apart. Guidance says that that's recommended. Still, 1 meter as a minimum. And this combines with Deputy Higgins' answer also. We've also said in guidance that venues should consider not filling their venues to capacity, but at the most limiting their numbers to 50% of their usual capacity. So that may apply to the air display also. It might be difficult to assess capacity there. For those events that require a bailiff's permit, and in this respect, perhaps it is an idea that the bailiff did depart. I believe the bailiff's office has said that for applicants for a bailiff's permit will have to show that they comply with public health guidance. And so that refers us back to the guidance, which is, still make every effort to observe a proper separation of people to avoid crowding. Again, so I hope that helps, but I invite those members, if they have very specific questions, or if I haven't answered precisely, just to email myself or public health officers, and we will try and be precise. And particularly with Deputy Higgins, who has an event to organise, we will want to, and public health officers do, and I thank them for this, they engage with event organisers and industry in trying to ensure that we can get back to normal and operate in a safe manner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Dooley, you asked for a separate vote on Regulation 5, but has the Minister answered your point on that, so there's no need for a separate vote?
Yes, sir. I don't think there's a need for a separate vote at this point. Thank you.
So unless I hear otherwise, the vote will be on all of the regulations combined. I don't hear any challenge to that, so I will ask the greffier to prepare a link for a vote on all of the regulations. The link is available, so the vote is open. Members have had the opportunity to cast their votes. I will ask the greffier to close the voting. Regulations have been adopted. There were 40 votes pour, no votes contra. There was an additional vote pour in the chat. That's 41 in total. Minister, do you wish to take this forward in third reading?
I do, sir, and may I thank members for their support thus far. Government is very conscious of the very unusual and extensive powers that are being contained in this legislation. We exercise them sparingly, having regard to the implications on our society and civil liberties. And I am pleased that this Assembly has been heavily involved in managing the COVID pandemic throughout, and has scrutinised government in this respect. May I thank also all the officers who have put together, worked on this very complex piece of legislation, which is going to provide protections we need for the next 6 months in order to keep our island safe. Thank you, sir. I propose the third reading.
Third reading seconded?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good point. Deputy Lehegra, I'd forgotten to offer this to the health panel. I'm going to hope you don't want it.
You're quite right, sir, but I did hesitate and I did think it was probably appropriate to ask. So no, we don't want to call it in. Thank you.
Brilliant. It's well, there we go. Any member wish to speak on third reading? I think no member wishes to speak on third reading, in which case I will ask the greffier to put a link into the chat. The voting link is available, so I ask members to cast their votes. Members have had the opportunity to cast their votes. I will therefore ask the greffier to close the voting. And the regulations have been adopted in third reading. There were 39 votes per, no votes contra, additional vote in the chat. That's 40 in total.
The next item is the draft COVID-19 enabling provisions amendment number 2 Jersey law P27 lodged by the same minister, and the main respondent also with the chair of the Health and Social Services Scrutiny Panel, that's Deputy Hegerer, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft COVID-19 enabling provisions amendment number 2 Jersey law 2000, a law to amend further the COVID-19 enabling provisions Jersey law 2020. The state, subject to the sanction of Most Excellent Majesty and Council, have adopted the following law.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. This law, if adopted, extends the operation of the COVID-19 enabling provisions Jersey law to the 31st of March 2022. So we're now over 1 year into this pandemic, and whilst we can take some pride in the fact that the situation here is currently under control and our vaccination program is proceeding well, unfortunately, jurisdictions around us are still in the grip of the pandemic and seeing waves of infection. It's therefore essential that we have the legal tools to control COVID-19. And although they might not necessarily be deployed, as we've seen in the last debate, this extension to the enabling law is intended to ensure that we retain the capacity to develop and modify our legislative framework that enables decisive action when it is needed and which restricts islanders' liberties as little as possible. Essentially, sir, as members will know, primary legislation needs the sanction of Her Majesty's Privy Council, but that Privy Council agreed when we put forward the enabling law the early part of last year that for the purposes of the control of the pandemic, this States Assembly would be empowered to make certain measures without necessarily incurring the delays of the process involving the Privy Council. And so now that the preceding proposition has been adopted, which extends much of the emergency legislation to the 31st of August, that falls beyond the end of the current enabling law extension. So as members will be aware, if the enabling arrangements were to expire, no new emergency regulations and no order under the existing regulations could be made, and that has immediate effects on the control of COVID-19. And so therefore this proposition will enable the enabling law to extend its operation to the 31st of March 2022. And of course, we really hope that the pandemic will be well and truly over by that time, or at least that matters will have reached a point where COVID is globally controllable. During the debate on the previous extension of this legislation, I said that the Council of Ministers and I very much hoped that it would no longer be necessary beyond this time. Sadly, we see from the winter we've experienced and the experience of other jurisdictions that there's still a need to retain a degree of control over the situation, which does mean that we believe we need to retain this enabling legislation. So we've chosen that extension period until the 31st of March 2022, because any decision on any further extension that might be required must be taken not only in advance of the required lodging period, but also in consideration of the Privy Council schedule for the relevant period. This means that a decision on the further extension would be required by the latest by January 2022, at which point the prevailing conditions of this coming winter will be known and understood. Essentially, sir, this is this is a significant piece of legislation, but that does give us the powers to introduce the measures that we need to take, sometimes rapidly, in order to control the spread of COVID in the island. And therefore, sir, I propose the principles.
Are the principles seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the principles? No member wishes to speak on the principles. Then the debate is now closed, and I ask the greffier to put a vote into the chat.
Sir, should this be referred to scrutiny first?
No, we have to have the principles adopted first, and then
Apologies,
scrutiny
sir.
decides if they want to take them in there.
Apologies, sir.
If Mr. Norton. I open the voting. I open the voting and ask members to vote.
Okay.
Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the greffier to close the voting. Yes, all right. Can we keep the voting open for a moment, greffier? Yes. Very well. We'll keep the voting open for just a few minutes, as apparently there's a slow operation. If members have had the opportunity of casting votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the principles have been adopted. 39 votes pour, no votes contre, and no abstentions in the link, and a further vote pour noted in the chat. Deputy Hegarard, does your panel wish to call this in?
No, thank you, sir.
Indeed. How do you wish to deal with the matters in second reading, Minister?
So the proposition is very simple. I'd like to take the two articles en bloc.
Is the matter seconded for second reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any does any member wish to speak in second reading? No member wishes to speak in second reading. Then debate is closed, and I ask the greffier to place a link into the chat. I open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The article has been adopted in second reading, 40 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstention in the link, and 1 vote pour in the chat. Do you move the matter in third reading, Minister?
I do, sir, and I thank members for their support thus far, and all officers working on this in their liaison with the Privy Council and officers there also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Is the matter seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak in third reading? No member wishes to speak in third reading. Then debate is closed, and I ask the greffier to put a link into the chat. And I open the voting and ask members to vote.
So that vote is not opening for some reason, it's just loading.
Sorry, who's that?
So it's Deputy Ward. It's okay, it's just open. Sorry, sir.
All right, very well. Well, I'll give you a moment or two before I do anything.
Up to 39. I think.
If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, ask the greffier to close the voting. Law has been adopted in third reading, 40 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions on the link, and 2 further votes pour in the chat. The next item is the draft illegal, unreported and unregulation fishing Jersey regulations, P36, lodged by the Minister for the Environment. For the purposes of the debate, the main respondent will be the Chair of the Environment, Housing and Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel, and I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
Draft illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing Jersey regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Article 2 of the European Union Legislation Implementation Jersey Law 2014.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I begin by, first of all, a couple of apologies. Firstly, having been my first day back in the States Chamber, which is a real pleasure for a year, I find my laptop camera won't working. It's obviously been set up differently from my HD camera home. So anyway, that's a personal thing, but I do my best, sir. And I want to thank, of course, States members for allowing me to bring this item today at short notice. I hope, although members, I'm sure, have read through it, it looked very, very complicated. This is one of 2 pieces of regulation for management of our fisheries. This particular one, I'm very hopeful you will share my view after hearing what I have to say. This is very much, I think, the one which will give Jersey less problems. This is a piece of legislation which we would have had to bring anyway because of Brexit, that we would cease to become, on the 1st of January, we ceased to be a member of the EU and became a third country, and therefore had to put in place the external structures to comply with international agreements. And of course, the key thing is that the new agreement with the UK and EU, which we've joined in, does require us to have these to be compliant. The TCA, as it were, the TECA, does require us to fulfil these obligations. And of course, globally, illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing constitutes one of the big serious threats to sustainable exploitation of aquatic resources and jeopardizes fishing policy and management and international efforts to promote ocean governance. And so a big threat to marine diversity, so action against the IUU fishing is an international effort under the UN Convention for the Law of Sea. And so that's where Jersey, now to do this, to fulfill our obligations, we've of course got a comprehensive and well-established system for monitoring and enforcement of fishing activity in our waters under the framework of the 1994 law and other agreements, i.e. there's a fisheries management agreement, an FMA, with the UK. Incidentally, that does need reviewing. That's a story for another day, but it's not considered that Jersey as an issue with IUU fishing, either with fishing vessels in Jersey water or indeed Jersey's fleet when it fishes external to territorial waters, which of course our boats do when they have those licenses. And of course Jersey as well, if you look around our seas, we don't have international waters because around our seas there's no exclusive economic zone, so because we're completely surrounded by France and Guernsey at a distance of no more than 12 miles. So certain aspects of EU legislation, which could be considered as part of the IUU regulatory package, have already been adopted as appropriate. For example, around vessel monitoring, reporting and landing declarations. Relevant Jersey regs are Sea Fisheries Vessel Monitoring Systems, Jersey Regs 2014, Sea Fisheries Logbooks, Transshipment and Landing Decks Regulations 2014. However, the draft legislation today, on what I'm asking you to sign up to, is required, because I said, because of the UK's new arrangements. And of course, we are Jersey, of course, now in Protocol 3 of the previous membership, the British membership of the EU meant now that's gone, but we are no longer within the EU customs territory. So that is thought likely, it is, and of course we know that when these notes are written, that was thought to be likely. Of course we know now that very much it has had an impact on Jersey vessels landing into the EU and French vessels' ability to land in Jersey. And of course we don't actually have that. It's rather theoretical at the moment. That may come in the future, but at the present time that's not a feature, but nonetheless we have to have these legal arrangements in place. So it's an important element of those international agreements. And of course, if we weren't to do this, there would be, and I have said this is, I think, frankly, a theoretical, because places like Jersey, these things would be spotted. There is potential for a loophole in respect of third country vessels landing fishery products in Jersey, which could then be re-exported to either the UK or the EU. And so what we have to do is to give the reassurance to the UK, the EU and international bodies, that's the regional fisheries management, that Jersey is meeting these international standards. And also it future-proofs legislation should the markets change. And of course we are into a period of uncertainty where fishing, I think it's likely, fishing markets and so on will change over the years. So this is an important step to have this. So of course, reputationally, we don't want to be a backdoor or weak spot in to do with financial controls of fishing as well, about ownership of vessels, insurance and other services which may be offered to vessels and operators who engage in this IUU fishing. But as I said, don't think that's really likely at the moment. It's not. I've covered the fact that we've got these other obligations, these other pieces of legislation in place already. So now, of course, I think you've already, from what I've said already, legislation concerning fishing is extremely complicated. IUU fishing is even worse. The EU regulations are more than 50 pages, but really what they kind of basically do, to sum up, three things. It provides a legal framework and obligations that allows Jersey vessels and exporters of fisheries products to continue to land and trade into the EU ports. To ensure that vessels landing into Jersey ports and vessels and companies connected to Jersey that engage in fishing activities comply with the legal requirements that demonstrates they are not engaged in IUU fishing, and to prevent the current gaps in legislation being exploited by those, some who could be involved in organised crime engaged in EU fishing. Nonetheless, of course, we do not think any of those issues are real issues at the moment, but nonetheless, we have to do this. So this legislation is being made under the European Union legislation implementation, Jersey Law 2014, and therefore it is passed that would, with the modifications necessary to apply to Jersey, mean that EU regulation 1005/2008 established a system to determine it would be in place, sir. We are extremely well-regulated jurisdiction, but we need to make sure we update and maintain that position. And of course, the fact that we are now a third country really makes that even more important with the international agreement that we are a party of as far as fish, the trade and cooperation agreement. I'd like to thank the Constable of St. Brelard as well, who has had a briefing for this regulation and discussion and the scrutiny panel. And I thank members of the panel members of the Assembly for allowing me to bring this forward today. Hopefully, sir, members will agree that this is the more, I think, the more esoteric part of the two pieces of legislation I'm bringing today. Thank you, sir. I'll try and answer members' questions.
Well, are the principles seconded? Does any member wish to speak on the principles of the legislation? Honourable Greville.
Sorry, sir, my telephone went. I'm in the office at the parish hall. No way of turning it off. Yes, the chairman of the EHI panel, unfortunately, is at a funeral and has asked me to speak on his behalf. Obviously, with a very short lodging period of these regulations, it's been impossible to properly scrutinise them. Having said that, the department all the way through Brexit have done everything they can to keep our panel informed of everything that's going on. It's not an ideal situation, but we feel that these regulations should go through, and I know the Constable of St. Brelard's will be supporting this proposition. We can't really say any more than that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Constable. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. It's just a couple of quick questions. One was the proposition refers to foreign boats or foreign fishing vessels. I just wanted wondered if the minister could clarify that foreign means any vessel that is not a Jersey vessel, and so isn't just reference to EU, but is also reference to UK and Guernsey vessels as well. And I would also be grateful if the minister could explain to the Assembly the length and breadth of his consultation with the fishing sector, please, and how many representatives of the fishing sector he has spoken to and what their views are. That'd be great. Thank you, sir.
Very much. Deputy St. Martin.
Thank you, sir. And I just speak very, very briefly to give the Minister my full support. Illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing is something that we need to make sure we're completely on top of. It's a great threat to anything that might happen in our marine environment, and the Minister gets my vote. Thank you, sir.
Very much indeed. Senator Ferguson.
Thank you, sir. As the Assembly will know, I have been pushing for support of the fishing industry for some time. However, this morning on Radio Jersey, there was a French biologist who was busy saying that our fishermen are being emotional and that the scallop beds, for example, are better than they've been for 40 years. So I wonder, what comments has the minister to make on this? When will he be able to produce some evidence that perhaps this gentleman is being slightly over enthusiastic about fishing for scallops? Thank you, sir.
Any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles? Deputy Higgins.
Thank you. So just following up from Senator Ferguson's comments regarding the scallop beds, can the Minister tell us, scallops, yes, can be hand dived, but this is not what this is applying to. And they are trawled, if I'm not mistaken, or are they dredged? And if a dredge is going over the sea bottom to rake up the scallops, does it discriminate between small and mature scallops? And how would that relate to the statements made by this so-called scientist? Thank you, sir.
Correct, Harbison, Peter.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like to ask the Minister if he's aware of comments made on one of the French television stations. I saw a short documentary that they made where one of their reporters went out into our on a French vessel into our waters, and the French captain said that the French fishermen would bankrupt our Channel Island fishermen by preventing them from having access to markets, as they very much feel that, although they're our waters, they very much feel that they're their waters and they're entitled to them. And I'd just like to ask the Minister if he could cover that in his response. Thank you very much.
Any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to speak on the principles. Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the 7 members for some very, very interesting and important points there. I think some of them are possibly more relevant, the answers to them, to the second question about licensing of French vessels, but nonetheless, I'll give it a start. Obviously, grateful for the Connétable of Grouville's support on behalf of the scrutiny panel. We have tried to, say the preparation work for this particular piece of legislation was kicked off before the TECA agreement, because obviously it was always known once you leave the EU, some bits of all the EU legislation fell away, and we had to reenact those parts of it that we really needed to fulfill our obligation. And so it's proven to be is that with the TECA that came along, we have these obligations confirmed. So thank you for that. Now, Deputy Morell, what of course the question, who does this apply to? I think it applies to all fishing boats. Now, if we look at the various users of our waters, EU boats, of course, that were to do illegal fishing would already be acting in contravention of their own national licenses, and therefore, so they would definitely be, the EU rules would be applying to them anyway. In terms of Jersey boats, obviously the intention here is that Jersey boats, of course, would be covered by this, therefore, and I've never heard any suggestion, frankly, of any illegal fishing ever happening from Jersey boats, but one could get a situation from where any third country boat uses Jersey in some way or other to support this, and therefore this legislation that I'm asking the states to approve today would deal with that. What I can't answer, I'm afraid, is the position of UK boats. I don't know what the UK are going to do about this. The assumption I make, of course, the United Kingdom is a third country, and therefore I assume they will have this in place. I'd have to follow that up. Length and breadth of consultation. Well, obviously, first of all, the law officers have been heavily involved with this. The complexity shows so, and of course, throughout all of this work, the Marine Resources team that I want to pay tribute to, they are an outstanding group, and they worked so hard on this. The expert people, they've had to work with the UK DEFRA, the counterparts throughout, and to ensure that what we're doing is sensible and appropriate. And of course, my understanding is, having attended Marine Resources panel, I don't go to them all. Deputy Gila chairs, usually chairs, but I have attended recently because of the tensions and the issues that exist. They are entirely clear that this is a really important part of our legislative framework to protect us from illegal fishing. Of course, most of their concerns and issues, in fact, all of them, are in relation to the next item of business, which we'll go into shortly. Thank you, Deputy Luce, for support. Senator Ferguson. Now, this is where both Senator Ferguson and Deputy Higgins spoke about the scallop issue. I wonder, sir, if members, they would agree that I will try and answer that in the licensing, because here we have licensed vessels, and I know there are arguments that those boats that have been accessing our waters for scallops in the last few weeks, I know there are arguments saying this is illegal fishing, but of course it is being done. The checks that we've done is that it is being done within the terms of the amnesty, where we agreed that over 12-metre boats that had that have Granville Bay agreements. Granville Bay was the agreement in place before the 1st of January. Those licenses would be honoured, even though I have to say there has been a long-standing difference of opinion between Jersey and the French authorities, maritime authorities, over the number of licenses. The view that our fishermen take, backed up by our marine resources people, is there are far more boats with Bay of Granville licenses than from the French that ever fished in our waters or ever had a track record, but nonetheless they had those licenses. And of course, for many years, it's a secret, not open secret, we were trying to reduce that, and that did not succeed. We have now a situation under the Trade and Cooperation Agreement that there is those boats qualify for Jersey licenses if and only if they have a qualifying track record of 10 days at sea fishing in our waters between January 17 and January 20. Now, okay, scallops are, I listened to the French biologist, heard him this morning, because what it illustrated to me is there has been differences of opinion historically between the French maritime authorities and Jersey. There have been disagreements about the catch data, disagreements there about it, but very polite, of course. It's not been row. These things are done very sensibly, but there have been differences of view. And the current, the Marine Resources Panel were advised on Monday, I attended, that our assessment of the scallop fishery is at the moment it's assessed at being fished at 700 tonnes a year. That is slightly high. They would prefer it to be around 620, thereabouts, tonnes a year. So it's marginally overfished. Our fishermen would like to see, did discuss but haven't decided that when we get our rules back that we might reduce down, so we change some of the allowed dimensions, increase the size and so on to try and reduce that. And I'll say more about how that licensing in the second item. So there are disagreements there. And also I would mention that there is an issue about the provision of catch information to Jersey. I heard the French scientist say that he had that information. Well, if he has that information, we certainly do not have it. And that's the information I've had. We have not been provided with that catch data. Hand diving, no problem with that. Deputy Higgins, you can't hang and dive in 60 metres of water, which is where the intense effort's been done. And the stock will be reassessed after the end of the 30th of April, which we're going to go to in a minute. Constable of St. Peter. Yes, I did hear that that piece of media from the French television channel. I don't French, but I did see the translation, and I think the meaning of it was pretty clear. I don't want to increase the tensions. I think what it showed is the tensions that have gone on in the last few months. Thankfully, they've dived down a bit, but there's no question there still are issues to be resolved about access of our fishing boats to EU markets. And I know that that's an issue that I've asked Senator Gorst as External Relations Minister to take up. But I think just mentioning that Senator Gorst, he did answer Deputy Higgins a question in the States earlier this week. He did say that the level of fishing was not thought to be any different to what it was previously. The information I have had is that there were the fishing. There previously was a period of excess fishing attributable to, I believe, French boats. I think it's 2015. I need to correct when that was, where the extraction rate went up to 1,250 tons, and of course that did cause the stock to suffer, and that took some years to recover. But where we are now, the stock is healthy. The team will reassess that, the impact of what's gone on recently, because as I say, we haven't had the catch data in deciding on what measures to introduce in future. So there are tensions, and I very much hope that the External Relations Minister, with his meetings with the French authorities, can try and improve matters in terms of the barriers, the difficulties in landing. Of course, we all know, what I also told is that the market has crashed for scallops in France anyway, with their closure of restaurants and so on, and very large quantities of scallops being put on the market by the French. So maybe this is not time, but there are lots of other issues with that, which I think I probably said enough. So I make the sorry for going on length there. I tried to discipline that, and I think I've slightly failed. So I will ask for the principles, please, sir.
Very well. I'll ask the Deputy to place a voting link into the chat. And I open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the Secretary to close the voting. The principles have been adopted. 41 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further vote pour in the chat. Conrad of Greville, does your panel wish to call this in? I assume not from what you've said, but...
No, sir.
Thank you very much. How do you wish to propose the regulations in second reading then, Minister?
Thank you, sir. Well, I'd like to propose them en bloc, but I think I should just scan through what they are. Regulation 1 makes the IU regulations applicable to Jersey. Regulation 2 sets out the activities within Jersey territorial waters, other jurisdictions and high seas. 3 sets out modifications to allow it to apply to Jersey, as Jersey is not a member state of the EU. Regulation 4 provides that the minister, whoever holds the office of Minister of Environment, is the competent authority for, and also Regulation 5 designates the Port St Helier for the designated ports for IUU, and the minister may designate other ports. Regulation 6 and 7 means the minister can make exemptions for third country vessels. Regulation 8 to inform the competent authority of a flag state, etc., where it decided not to grant permission to transship. Regulation 9 is appeals. Regulation 10 gives the powers to fishery officers. That's really important to cover these, and that's our fishery officers and the IUU. Regulation 11 allows disclosure of information to other competent authorities for the purpose of combating these illegal stuff. Regulation 2 deals with the offences, and of course they are very savage, I think, potential severity, and this is something I think worldwide is generally supported because there needs to be deterrent to this breaches of the law. The other one is citation and so on. So I propose the regulations on block, sir.
Are the regulations seconded for second reading?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the regulations or any one of them in second reading? Deputy Morell.
Thank you, sir. And I do apologise, and I don't mean to frustrate any members of the Assembly, but I do actually have to repeat the questions I asked in the principles because they weren't answered by the Minister. My questions were what consultation took place with the fishing industry. I didn't ask what consultation took place with the law officers. So if the Minister could respond with telling me what consultation took place with the fishing industry. And the other question was it's very simple. Are Guernsey and UK vessels classified as foreign vessels? That's the question there. Thank you, sir.
Any other member wish to speak on the regulations? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
So, well, I mean, look, the problem I've got in answering Deputy Morell's questions is I don't actually attend just about every meeting of these work, but there is a Marine Resources panel that meets frequently. Other members also attend that. My assistant minister does. At the moment, I haven't got a message there, but I've never heard any other message from the fishing industry from that group, which is the body that we have that does consultation with all parts of the industry. There's the aquaculture people there, they're the inshore fishermen, there's a wide range of interests that we need to have these frameworks in place. And obviously we are not free to be able to design this ourselves. We are trying to apply international rules elsewhere and modify them for Jersey so they fit. So this is not the question us starting from a plain sheet of paper trying to, we don't have that luxury. It's we either go along with it and comply. Now, clearly, from what I've said, these regulations would apply to any foreign vessel in accessing our waters, and or not just accessing our waters, using us in any way to further illegal fishing activity. Now, I wish I could tell you Guernsey have done the same thing. Guernsey are party to the Trade and Economic Cooperation Agreement, the same as us. So they're subject to the same international obligations. Whether they've got them into their law or not, I don't know, but I cannot think that if they haven't yet done so, that they will do so. But of course, in the meantime, if we were to get a Guernsey boat take part in that illegal activity, I'm absolutely sure in our waters or using Jersey in any way, I'm sure this law, I feel very confident this law would cover it. Thank you, sir. So I can propose the regulation so en bloc.
Very well. Ask the. I'm afraid, Senator Ferguson, the debate on the regulations is now closed, and the Minister has summed up. There's no opportunity now to speak.
You can speak on third reading.
Sorry?
You can speak on third reading. You can speak on third reading.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You'd have the opportunity to speak on third reading if the regulations are adopted in second reading.
Thank you, sir.
Very well. Ask the Greffier to place a voting link into the chat. And I open the voting and ask members to vote.
Okay.
Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. I ask the Greffier to close the voting. The regulations have been adopted in second reading, 43 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions in the link, and a further vote pour in the chat. Do you propose the matter in third reading, Minister?
Yes, sir. I think I do have a note that I think the Solicitor General may want to give advice about foreign vessels on that one, sir, which I probably didn't answer as comprehensive as I could. So I wonder if at this point, could I, within the procedure, ask to hear from him at this point before I propose a third reading?
Well, I think what you need to do is to propose in third reading. Then if that is seconded for third reading, then I invite members to speak, and at that point the Solicitor General can offer his advice.
Thank you, sir. When I propose the third reading, I'm conscious that I will need to respond to Senator Ferguson with her question, and so I propose the third reading.
Is the matter seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Solicitor General, do you wish to offer any advice?
So yes, just to clarify the question that Deputy Morell asked. These regulations enshrine in domestic law, as the Minister has explained, the illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing regulations that exist in European law. Every fishing vessel will be subject to those regulations, whether they're Jersey vessels or not. Third country fishing vessel, as opposed to foreign vessel, is defined in the interpretation section of these draft regulations as a fishing vessel registered in any country or jurisdiction other than Jersey. So that would include Guernsey registered vessels and UK registered vessels and any vessels registered anywhere else in the world. The relevance of that for the purposes of the regulations is this: it's found in draft regulation 6, which is that the Minister may by order exempt specified categories of third country fishing vessels from the obligations imposed by Article 6.1 of the European regulations, and that's really the relevance of it. I've got a copy of the EU regulations that these are designed to import into UK law, into Jersey law, forgive me. Article 6 concerns foreign vessels effectively giving prior notice to Jersey that it wishes to land its catch in a Jersey port. And it has to give under the regulations various details, and there are times set before which it can land. Those details must be given. So the effect of our draft regulation 6 would be that the Minister can make orders either varying those conditions or varying the time frame in which they have to be given, or indeed exempting certain specified foreign vessels from complying with those requirements at all. So I hope that clarifies and is helpful.
Very much, Mr. Solicitor. Senator Ferguson, did you wish to speak in third reading? Senator Ferguson, did you wish to speak in third reading?
Sorry, sir, I was trying to find the correct button to press. I feel very strongly about the position of the fishermen, as I know the Minister and his assistant do also. I wasn't really quite sure where to ask these particular questions, so perhaps the Minister will clarify his stance on this. You know, what steps is he taking to support the fishermen? You know, they would like to set up a co-op like the Jersey Dairy. You know, what steps are there to help set up, for example, a freezing plant and to get into alternative markets to France? Guernsey, for example, mainly export to the UK. So what are we doing to support the search for new markets? And the other question is, if Guernsey gets admitted to the North Atlantic Fisheries Commission due to having international waters, have there been any talks about joining them or joining with them as a Channel Islands joint body with regard to fishing in the overall area? You know, we're standing on our own 2 feet. So,
Senator, I do hesitate to interrupt you, but the rules of the Assembly require that this is a discussion upon whether or not the legislation should be adopted in third reading and not in any other tangential matter, I'm afraid. And so it does not appear to me that those remarks are specifically directed as to whether this piece of legislation should be adopted in third reading.
Sorry, Will, sir, I rather thought that my support of the minister and, you know, approbation of he and his assistant minister was very much that I agreed with this, and I just wanted to know how far they were going to extend the various regulations and so on, and working with the fisheries industry, given the poor deal they appear to have had. You know, I'm sorry if it doesn't sound as if it's part of the debate, but I think it should be part of the debate. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Senator. Deputy of Greville, you've asked, you say there's a question. Is that for the Solicitor General?
Yes, sir.
Very well. Deputy, please do ask that.
Thank you. It's with regard to what he's just referred to in Article 6. Could I ask if there could be provision to obligate the landing of fish caught in our waters before being shipped to markets in France or elsewhere?
If I've understood the question correctly, the answer is no. These regulations do not provide for that. And the Article 6 of the European Union regulations, I don't think cover that either. They are solely concerned with third country vessels landing their catch in Jersey and having to meet certain, or having to give certain information before doing so, if they wish to do so. But those provisions are not concerned with onward transmission of a catch landed in Jersey to a third country.
Well, thank you, Solicitor General. Deputy Higgins.
Thank you, sir. I'd just like actually the Minister to answer the question that I asked on the previous one, and because again it will determine whether I support this. The French have argued that the fishing beds are fine, and yet scallops are fished in two main methods. One was hand diving, which I said wasn't relevant in this case, and the Minister mentioned that. But what about the dredging of the seabed to recover the scallops? Surely that affects both mature and immature scallops. Will he just tell me whether it's relevant if they're dredging the seabed? Surely they're damaging all scallops. Thank you, sir.
Does any other member wish to speak in third reading? No other member wishes to speak in third reading. Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I thank members again for some very, very good points. Obviously, I understand your ruling regarding Senator Ferguson's questions, but nonetheless, I can reassure the Senator that all of the suggestions that the Senator makes, I believe, are extremely good ones and fall within the category of assistance in the medium to longer term, where I certainly have made this clear at the Council of Ministers and at the Brexit ministerial group, and I have the support of my ministerial colleagues that they should be provided with financial support to do that. But of course, the provision of finance to support our industries doesn't sit with the Environment Minister's responsibility. As I think most members know, fisheries are both environment and economics, and it is not possible to split that. So the Minister assures me he's on the case, the officers are on it. These things are quite complex. I pick up that Guernsey. Yes, we know Guernsey has a different way of freezing products, but of course our market very much is in a different type of fish. Guernsey fishing is deep water, different types of species. Ours is different, which I'm told doesn't lend itself very well to freezing. From what I know, I believe that scallops, when they're taken out of the water, don't last very long. And so our products are very fresh, and that's what we want. So anyway, that work will go on, and they have to have that support. In the meantime, short term, a very interesting point the Senator raised, which I think is highly relevant to this question of Guernsey waters having international waters to their west, where, of course, I don't think we have international waters on our boundaries. So therefore, North Atlantic fisheries, I wasn't aware of that. I'll follow that up. Is there been cooperation with Guernsey on fishing? Well, one can. I wish. I could say more. I'm not going to say it now because us and Guernsey, we're both in the same agreement, and that would be a story for another day. Now, I think I should highlight this because I would be told off if I don't. In response to the Deputy of Grouville, I heard the Solicitor General's answer. Of course, this law that we're bringing today does not deal with that matter that she spoke of about landings into Jersey by EU boats. But I know my colleague, Assistant Minister, tells me that there are potential issues under customs regs, which may be something that will have to be looked at in the future. But that is a very great number of complications. It doesn't sit within my territory, and I'm sure the Home Affairs team will be having a look at that, because this is not the first time that surfaces. Deputy Higgins, look, hand diving is sustainable. Dredging in the seabeds in 60 meters water cannot be hand dived. It's dangerous. The waters we're talking about where it's being dredged are, I did circulate a map of the seabed and all the habitats type. The areas that have been dredged are areas that don't have the kind of diversity of seagrass and those species. We're talking about sand. We're talking about what is a harsh environment with high energy. And that's very, very different to the hand dive areas, which are shallow waters where we most want to protect. So I'm told these are the least sensitive areas. The dredging is the least sensitive. But of course, dredging is bad because it smashes up the whelks, I'm told. And the whelks are a species that are very threatened. And that's something which we will have to look at in our licensing framework. And the Marine Resources team did discuss the change to the size of the gear that's used to make sure that the younger scallops can escape. As I've said earlier, the advice we've had is that the scallops is healthy fishery. It's marginally being overfished. The team will look at ways of reducing it. We don't yet know whether there's been adverse impact from the recent very, very intense level of effort from EU boats in that area, but it will be measured. But in any event, it won't be continuing, hopefully, if you go on to the next piece of legislation, in an uncontrolled, in an unmanaged way any more than another 7 days. And so I would ask the Deputy, please, to come on board with support. We all want the same thing here. So I propose it in third reading.
Very well. I'll ask the Secretary to place a voting link into the chat. Open the voting and ask members to vote. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, ask the referee to close the voting. Regulations are adopted in third reading, 42 votes pour, no votes contre, and no abstentions. Very well, the final item of public business before the Assembly is the Draft Sea Fisheries TCA licensing of fishing boats amendment of law and regulations, Jersey regulations lodged by the Minister for the Environment, P38. The main responder will be the same scrutiny panel, and I ask the greffier to read the citation.
Draft Sea Fisheries TCA licensing of fishing boats amendment of law and regulations, Jersey regulations 2000. The states make these regulations under Articles 2, 7, 12, 13 and 29 of the Sea Fisheries Jersey Law 1994 and Article 2 of the European Union Legislation Implementation Jersey Law 2014.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. During the previous debate, members raised a lot of very, very valid points. But of course, the difference between this piece of legislation I'm now about to propose is very much that this is, I hope very much, a major step forward, if not the solution to many of those problems about how we make sure that we can keep our fishery sustainable and ensure that that has a future and we don't damage our marine environment in an irresponsible way. And so this now, the one thing that is new is that on Christmas Eve, we got the draft, or not the draft, we got of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, which UK Prime Minister had agreed with EU commissioners at the 11th hour. And of course, none of us knew the details of it. And we had a couple of days to digest it before this assembly was asked to sign up to it. I think it was New Year's Eve we signed up and decided to participate. The one thing that we achieved from that, because I think that my own personal view is that Brexit was always going to be extremely negative. Nothing was ever going to get us a good a situation as Protocol 3. But nonetheless, we didn't get a say, but we've had to make it work with what we got. And we got the power to manage our seas by powers to license all vessels. Under the previous Bay of Granville agreement, that was not the case. Under the previous Bay of Granville agreement, which the TECA rubbed out, if you like, expired on the 1st of January, the licensing was shared. Jersey licenses its vessels and the Republic of France licensed its vessels. And that arrangement now ends, and we license all vessels in our seas, which goes right out to, we're talking here, right out to the 12 miles. We have 12 miles of sea. The 0 to 3 miles are exclusive. The 3 to 6 we are required under the TECA to ensure continuation of the previous nature and extent of access for fishing within those waters by the TECA. And this gives us the help to do the rules. And of course, we all know that for the last 4 months, there's not been a day gone by we've sat without some national publicity, local publicity, anxieties, issues, and so on. So what, of course, the officers have had to do is to work out now how are we going to do this, because there were clear, very significant differences between Jersey's licensing regime and that which the European Union had, or the Republic of France, because it wasn't the EU who issued the license, it was France. And we had to work out that access regime for vessels from Normandy, Brittany, and we had to fulfill the obligations. We recognised early on that amendments required to both the fisheries law and the subordinate legislation, where we got both here. So we got one legal document, but it effectively changes both the law and also the regulations, which is probably a bit unusual, but it's necessary. They enable us to comply with the new framework set out, And the previous legislation made specific references to the structures of permitting and zones that existed within the Granville Bay Agreement. This is, of course, no longer the case because the Trade and Cooperation Agreement supersedes, and we have to change that, that legislation. People might ask, well, why didn't we do this earlier? Well, certainly, we brought a previous amendment. I think members will probably remember just before the new year. In fact, we did when we did the TECA. We did an amendment number 8, and this was, if you like, I think it was a stopgap. Basically, all it said is where we can license EU vessels, which we couldn't do under law. We wanted to do it for years, but we've never been able to do it with it. Well, it's a stopgap. But of course, that wasn't enough, because what we had to then do was to work with all the officers. They'd have had to work with DEFRA, who have got the role under the UK of working out the agreements between the UK and the EU of how the licensing regime would work. And that we've had to have them on board with us as how that would be done. And that's taken some time. And also the legal complexities have been huge. The law officers and the law drafting department, I think they've done incredible work to get us to this point where we are able to discuss today and hopefully approve the detail of regulations and legal changes to allow us to do what we signed up to do. And of course, it does make the point of why we had to have the amnesty. Been heavily criticised for why we needed an amnesty, but we needed the time to do this. And just to clear one thing, there is mention, and the misleading this, that the amnesty is being extended until June. That does not apply. Does not apply. That extension does not apply to the over 12 meters large boats that are fishing from the EU in our waters. There is a massive difference between the Jersey fleet, which is traditionally smaller vessels that mostly fish in our inshore waters around the reefs, and the very large, powerful vessels, the over 12 meters. And I sent around emails to members trying to give them the extent of historic interest, access to our waters, which we know about and we recognised. So I want to thank all the team, the Marine Resources people, the work with DEFRA, and I understand DEFRA, of course, consulting with the EU as well. So I am here today, and I'm advised by my officers that these rules here are consistent and thought to be the appropriate response to what we need to do. Now, a couple of things. Members might think, well, why are we using the European Union legislation implementation law to change the Jersey? Well, because we've got to use both fisheries law, we've got to change both the law and the regulations. So I hope I can tell you a lot more about the licensing details. So I think probably I'll do that in response to questions. But I think the purpose of this, the one difference between this piece of legislation that I'm now proposing and the one we've just done before is that this is, if you like, our own design, and we've had to take into account the whole, it's if you like, not just influence, it's structured entirely around the new agreement to deliver that. And we have had the opportunity or the Marine Resources, to brief the scrutiny panel on the underlying principles of the way in which licensing will work. There's a presentation here that I think I've got here, which hasn't gone to all members, but it's gone to the scrutiny panel, and about the principles of that. And I'm looking forward to what the Connie Tile of Grouville will be saying on that in a moment. So I'll stop at that point, sir, and propose the principles, sir.
Thank you very much. The principle seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the principles? No member wishes to speak on the principles. Deputy St Martin.
Thank you, sir. And I was only waiting in case the Constable Grieville wanted to say something, but I just wanted to make a couple of points, if I may. The Minister, of course, will be getting my full support with this. We know how detailed and protracted trying to get this law together has been. It's taken law officers and members of the Marine Resources team an enormous amount of hard work. We have built up a wonderful team in Marine Resources over the last 6 years, sir, and they put together a very extensive piece of work for us here. One question I have for the Minister is around zones, and the Minister and others will know that in the Granville Bay Agreement there were a number of zones on the chart, and I understand that that's being replaced with some sort of other system to do with time and effort. And if the Minister could explain that in a little bit more detail, I would be grateful. But I would just refer members at this early stage to Regulation 3, which I think sums up the whole of this large and extensive piece of work. And Regulation 3 amends Article 7, which provides a power to the Minister for the environment to restrict sea fishing in our territorial waters. And I think that says it also. We the Minister will now have the ability to manage Jersey's territorial waters from a sustainable point of view. And I think that's absolutely essential and a wonderful thing to have. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? No other member wishes to, Deputy Ward.
Oh, thank you, sir. I was just going to ask the Minister, and I would support any move that gives the promise of a sustainable fishing industry in Jersey waters and protects fish stocks and the environment around our shores. I just wonder, does the Minister envisage any knock-on effects in terms of access to other waters and wider waters beyond Jersey for our fishing industry? And are negotiations happening regards those possible need for licenses, etc., should the number of licenses for boats outside Jersey be reduced? We know the way in which these negotiations can go at times, and I just want some reassurances that that question is in hand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Does any other member wish to speak on the principles? If no other member wishes to speak on the principles, then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. Again, really excellent questions. Obviously, the power that I'm seeking today will, of course, the licensing will be delegated to our Marine Resources team. We've got excellent scientists and a team, I think, of highly praised, and I've certainly spoke to the UK Secretary of State about sea fisheries. I've spoken, that's George Eustace. I've also spoken to the Assistant or Deputy Minister, Victoria Prentice, and they both said to me they got absolute confidence in the quality and ability and capability of our ability to manage our waters. I've got ourselves without interference from the United Kingdom, because obviously if we weren't to do that, then we would expect, I think, under the Fisheries Management Agreement with the UK, is that they would call us to task. That has never been necessary. Our record has been exemplary, and anyway, that applies to Jersey. It doesn't apply to all Crown dependencies, so I'll let members know which ones. Anyway, knows they. For Jersey, they've given me that confidence, and so that's why our team have, if you like, an open channel of communication with DEFRA scientists, and also members will be surprised at this. They have an excellent relationship with the French maritime scientists, but they have differences of agreement. And of course, the whole thing is is that the whole arrangements are so different in France. And there are so many different parties, so many different positions to be made that obviously messages get confused. So I feel very confident that the proposal they've put, and certainly Jersey fishing, of course, all of our fishing, our own boats, and we have to apply these rules in a non-discriminatory way. And it has to be based on the science. Those are two fundamental principles of the TECA. And non-discriminatory means that our own Jersey boats will have to be subject to this licensing arrangement. And first up, right up front, of course, is the question of the various métiers and species that they're fishing for. So there will be métier and species-based fishing endorsements for the 8 key métiers. And of course, for use of messier, for example, dredging, for scallops, a vessel will need to demonstrate a track record. And a number of endorsements issued will initially be fixed to limit effort, and that ensure that the level of fishing effort does not exceed what it was on the 1st of January 2021. And that will prevent EU boats from expanding into new fishing métiers. Now, this is the system that's already used in Normandy, but so it will not be new to French vessels. It will apply to Jersey vessels, but won't affect the way they currently fish, clearly because they've already got established track records of what they were doing. And then there'll be conditions attached, permit numbers, daily weight catch, fishing periodically, closed zones, and all this type of thing. And all that sits above, as well as the size limits and so on. And so, believe me, members, there'll be measures to minimise bycatch, mortality. I mean, my word, the fishing regulations is huge. Now, originally, this is Deputy Luce's key point, that there originally was a plan to use the formal zones, the management of zones, which was shown on the previous chart. And I did circulate this round earlier, a chart of the various sea areas that were historically grown up under the Bay of Grawl Agreement, where kind of access is limited to certain areas for certain boats. The recommendation I've had, I can only apologise to me. I would have to members. I don't have the full details of that. I only received that information this week. Is that it is proposed that rather than have limiting French vessels to zones, we would do it on historic days at sea. And it seems to be this whole question of vessel numbers of days at sea seems to be the key indicator of managing the fishery. So, for example, I think I sent round to you an email that I'd had from the Marine Resources team estimating the number of days at sea on an average by French vessels, and there at the moment it's 2,400 fishing days by French vessels per annum, and in our annual fleet total is around 3.5 fishing days between our fleet. So there is roughly equivalence there, numbers of days at sea. The big difference, of course, is that our fleet are small boats using low impact gear, mainly static pots, fishing brown crab, fishing lobsters, fishing whelking, and there's not a great deal of dredging effort, where of course dredging and trawling we see from the French vessels. So managing those métiers and managing those endorsements on the license is the way the team plan to do that. So there is a lot of choppy waters ahead, I think, in terms of implementing this, but the agreement is quite clear. We have to have sustainable fisheries. And right up the front of the TECA, this is not just about numbers, it's about maintaining the quality of the seas and quality of the marine environment. and that obligation goes to every party in that agreement. And so those principles are based on the science. And thankfully, the states did approve very substantial resources, which the marine resources have got for scientific work, which is well in progress at the moment to provide the evidence base required. So I think I'm grateful for Deputy Luce's comments, because he absolutely is so right. It's a major issue. Now, I think Deputy Ward spoke. I think his question was really what negotiations and the number of licenses. I think it was probably aimed at the EU situation, the EU boats. It is a fact that there are many more EU boats licensed in by the French than have accessed our waters historically ever. And under the agreement, they have to produce evidence. At the moment, we've had evidence of 36 of those vessels out of the several hundred which qualify. We've another 12 which we believe will do, but we haven't got the full evidence yet. And so there is work to do. And this may explain, to be frank, the tensions between that exist that underline this. But the TECA is clear. There is a qualifying period of a track record, and there has to be evidence of that to secure a Jersey license. And if a boat over 12 meters fishes in our waters without a license, then they'll be doing it contrary to the rules of their country, whether it's ours or anybody else. And I don't believe there'd be no way that any Jersey boat would put itself in that situation. So I think, sustainable fishing, yeah, hopefully that answers what Deputy Ward was saying. That's the whole point about the agreement. That's the whole point while we're doing this. There will be changes. We will have to justify every step of the way changes. It won't be instant. We have to work with the seasons. We have to work prior notice. The marine resources panel is there. And obviously we will have to make sure that we have a proper process of engagement, of consultation with our French neighbours, albeit that we make the decisions now. And now at the moment, I'm waiting to see, because that issue at the moment is not clear of what the structures are to do that with the EU, mainly, I think, because of the tensions that exist internationally over the whole agreement anyway, and so on. So hopefully that so I can ask, I forgot where I was now. I think I was hopefully responding to the first reading item. So can I propose first reading, sir?
Yes, you can indeed. I'll ask the Greffier to put a voting link into the chat. Open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have the opportunity of casting their votes. Then I ask the Greffier to close the voting. The principles have been adopted, 39 votes pour, no votes contre, 1 abstention in the link, and a further 2 votes pour in the chat. Do you then, how do you wish to deal with the matter in, I beg your pardon, Conitab of Grouville, does your panel wish to call this in? Conitab of Grouville?
Apologies, sir. No, sir, we don't want to call it in, thank you.
No, thank you very much indeed. How do you wish to deal with the matter in second reading, Minister?
Sorry, sir. The members have been very patient with me. I think the easiest thing to move, if I can put part 1 in block separately, because part 1, I think, is changes to the actual Sea Fisheries Jersey law. If I could do that first, there are a number of regulations which need to be in the law. First part first. I think so. I'll leave it at that. So propose part 1 on block.
Part 1, propose. Very well. You wish to propose these in separate blocks, and you wish to propose part 1 first.
Yes, sir. I'd like to take part 1 and part 2 separately. So I'm just proposing part 1, sir, for the start.
Proposing part 1. Yes, that's perfectly right. It's part 1 seconded. Does any member wish to speak on part Deputy of Grouville? Did you have a question of the Minister? Sorry, what is your question of the Solicitor General?
No, sir, it's probably not a question. It's just some points I'd like to make in the debate.
Well, then do you wish to speak now, and in connection with part 1, it's in second reading? Or is it in relation to something else?
No, I'd like to speak now.
Very well.
With regard to Article 7, powers to restrict, in particular 3B, I think that's the numbering, it's quite confusing. Sorry, Article 7B, powers to restrict, and in particular to do with the overall length. As the Minister and members will be aware, our fleet is predominantly a 12-metre fleet. And I would like to know if we are going to impose powers to restrict the length of boats fishing in our waters, and I sincerely hope we do restrict it to 12 metres, how much notice we have to give to vessels that are over 12 metres, because if this is a long protracted affair, then larger vessels could do an awful lot of damage in our marine environment. But also, if we are going to create a restriction with regards to our fleet, those members who operate vessels over the 12 metres, what provision will be made for them? That's my first question. The second was to do with the question I posed in the earlier debate to the Solicitor General with regard to illegal fishing, and I'm not entirely sure where this fits in this debate, so I'll make these comments now. I asked if there was an obligation with the if we could impose or obligate the landing of fish caught in our waters to be landed in Jersey. And the purpose I asked that, and the Minister made the point that we can no longer discriminate between fishermen and what jurisdiction they're from. However, with regard to the fish caught in our waters, there is discrimination, because if a French vessel lands fish elsewhere, then those fish are treated as if they are French. But if the fish if there is a requirement that the fish have got to be landed in Jersey first, having been caught in our waters, then those fish are deemed as non-EU fish. It's quite a complicated affair. So therefore, all the fish would be treated the same that are caught in our waters. So I would like to know if the Solicitor General said that the article previously did not provide, but my question is, could we oblige all fish caught in our waters to be landed here first before being shipped to whatever market? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Deputy, is there any other member wish to speak on part 1? If no one wishes to speak on part 1, then I close the debate on that part and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank the Deputy Grouville for her questions, both extremely good questions. The Deputy will know that I think we do have 2 Jersey boats with Jersey licenses who are over 12 metres, and they, of course, at the present time have conditions attached to those Jersey licenses which require them to expire at the end of 10 years. And the reason why is because the Marine Resources team, the advice I've had is that we need to reduce that fishing effort and that métier for sustainable, because where our stocks are, we've heard scallops are healthy. Our lobsters are declining. Brown crab is declining, seriously declining, I think, and our whelk fishery is not healthy either. Obviously, I have to arrange to circulate more details about that. That's my understanding of where things are. So we are trying, there is no question, there is a need to have conservation measures in place to make our fishing effort, bring it more into line with a sustainable fishery. Overall, let's take in the big picture. Now, obviously the question has arisen, what do we do about licenses for over 12-metre French boats? What conditions would be applied? Because I can see a situation where it wouldn't be consistent. There are lots of issues there, and so what I've asked the officers to do to have a look at this, and it's not a question I can give you the answers now. I'm sorry to the deputy, but we do accept it's an issue. We've got to find a resolution to it. Because it is true, underlying this is that fishing boats are, they have a value, and they have a value principally because of their licenses. And obviously when the licensing decisions are very relevant to that. And so I think we are I'm going to have to take a rain check and agree to have, for the officers to talk to Deputy, because I think the Deputy has a particular interest in that matter, and we've spoken on it before. So I can't answer definitively now, I'm sorry. On the other question, I'm going to have to give a similar answer, but perhaps a bit more. I've certainly heard the arguments put strongly before, that the Deputy put, that there is inconsistency at least, or in discrimination, that EU boats taking produce out of Jersey seas and then landing them into the EU, they're effectively exporting. And so therefore that export, it's argued, should be subject to customs rules and all the rules of that. That is a situation that sits outside of the Marine Resources team and within the Home Affairs and Defence Committee, but I recognise that were we to go that route now, I think it would run the risk of immediate complications with the French, and also create a very, very substantial liability of work in Jersey. And so I think that's something which we'll have to look at. So I'm sorry I can't give definitive answers, but I will make sure that the Deputy receives follow-ups on that, sir. So I think that hopefully it deals with part 1, sir. I can ask for the vote on part 1.
You can. I'll ask the greffier to place a link into the voting box. And I open the voting. Senator Ferguson, you've asked to speak. I'm assuming that you wish to speak on part 2 or part 3, because I had already closed the debate on part 1.
So sir. It's just a question which I can bring in anywhere, all the way through to
Very well, Senator.
part
Well,
3.
very well, Senator. You can deal with that in the next section if you wish to do so. Let's, Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes on part 1. I ask the referee to close the voting. Part 1 has been adopted, 39 votes pour, no votes contre, 1 abstention within the link, and a further 2 votes pour within the chat. Do you propose parts 2 and 3 together? 3 is only the citation at the end.
Yeah, yes, please, sir. Parts 2 and 3 together, and I do the same if I may, please, and propose them and deal with questions.
Very well. Are parts 2 and 3 seconded?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Does any member wish to speak on anything in part 2 or 3 in second reading? Senator Ferguson, did you wish to raise your question now?
Yes, I don't seem to have found it, sir. I may have missed it. What's the sort of level of cost of a license?
I'm afraid we can hardly hear anything that you're saying, Senator. There's a lot of interference as you're speaking. Is it possible to
Oh dear, sorry
adjust
about
something
that.
at your end for clarity?
It's this wretched Teams system. Never happens with Zoom. I just wondered what the sort of level of cost of a license is. Well, I don't seem to have found it anywhere in the papers. I may have missed it.
Very well. Thank you very much. Contab of St. Saviour, I see you've asked a question, but in fact, this is your opportunity to speak. Of course, you can ask a question within your speech if you wish to do so.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted a little information. What has gone through is pretty good, and it won't please everybody, as we know, and then we weren't here to please everybody. It's an impossible task. But also, do we have a vessel that can patrol the boats, that can patrol the sea area? Excuse me.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid we can't hear you very well, Contab. Was it that do we have a vessel that will patrol the area? Is that what you've asked?
Yes, sir. Yes, to make sure that no one is fishing illegally.
To make sure no one's fishing illegally. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else, any other member wish to speak on parts 2 and 3 in second reading? No one else wishes to speak on parts 2 and 3 in second reading, then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
So I tackle the second questions first. Yes, I'm very pleased to report that for a week or so we've had the Fisheries Patrol boat, Norman Le Brock, back. It went away for the winter. The state's approved money in the government plan for its refit and re-equipping with marine electronics. And so, yes, so that's really good news. The one thing that I have asked for is that clearly the Marine Resources team are going to need to spend more days at sea. In recent years, I think it's true to say that when resources were short, that reduced. We've now reversed that and been given approval to recruit additional crew to enable rostering of that vessel to keep it at sea a lot longer. And we've also got a vastly more improved rib, and which is the thing that the little boat that gets launched off the back. It should improve the effectiveness, speed up things and safety and so on. And the marine electronics are apparently are an order, I'm told, an order of magnitude above what they were before. to allow us to do all the things that we need to do in terms of monitoring and so on, computers on board and all sorts of things like that. But of course, there's no substitute for an outstanding team. We are so lucky to have a team of people. There is a bit of a problem at the moment, obviously with COVID. A decision was made. We can't ask our guys and girls, if we had them, I don't know if we haven't, but to go on board French boats with COVID at the moment. But I think we just have to keep close to that. But the marine systems are certainly the evidence. Where I think we've got to get a lot more evidence is that we have not had the catch data that we should get from EU boats. I mentioned that earlier, is that there was an issue of difference, if you like, between information from the French scientists and ours, and predominantly that's around the data. There are major differences in that data and the declarations and so on, but the issue now is clear. We're entitled to that catch data under the new scheme, under the new licensing. So I think that will help us with that. Sorry, I think there was another question. Yes, Senator Ferguson, this is where I'm going to apologise. Senator Ferguson, I do apologise. I don't have the information on licence fees. I will get it to you. I circulate it around. Jersey boats, of course, are well used to licence fees. I've got some figures in my head, but I don't want to get them wrong. What I don't know, what we've done yet, is what fees we will be charging French vessels. I'll have to advise members about that and take advice. Thank you, sir. Could I propose 2 and 3
Indeed.
together?
Ask the Secretary to put a voting link into the chat. Open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the Secretary to close the voting. Parts 2 and 3 have been adopted in second reading. 38 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstention in the link, and a further 2 votes pour noted in the chat. Do you propose the matter of third reading?
Yes, sir. In doing so, sorry. Habits. Press the wrong button, sir. I do apologise.
Sure.
Get used to this. Hopefully, if we keep our infection numbers low, we can all be back together, which one looks forward to. So I really must praise the work done. For the Marine Resources team, the officers, the state's lawyers, the Attorney General, and so on. Of course, you know, coming on top of Brexit, to have to come up with these really challenging legal frameworks in such a short time, it's phenomenal, sir. And I feel very privileged as Minister to inherit that. There are tough issues ahead. There's no question. You know, this is not. There's going to be, as the Connétable, as St Saviour said, there are going to be issues. We'll have to deal with them as we come to them. But at least we've got a sound legal framework. And obviously, we will maintain the relationships with the DEFRA because they will, because there are bodies such as the specialised committees for fishing, which are going to oversee this agreement. We will have to have that chain of communication and dialogue on that. Of course, at the moment, everybody will know that because the EU has not ratified the treaty, is that those specialised committees, I understand, are not yet meeting. So there will be a period, I think, of things to be sorted out. But I think, you know, today is a very good day. I should perhaps mention that everything I said relates to the over 12 metre boats, with the amnesty ending on the 30th of April. We have agreed to extend the amnesty until the 30th of June for those smaller boats, which are more like what you might call an artisan type of fishing métier, which is very much like our own little boats, who perhaps fish around the reefs, who don't have the sophistication of the vessel management systems and so on to give us that evidence. And obviously they need to be allowed a little bit more time. I don't think that's going to be a significant problem, sir, because our fishermen have always said that they want to enable that to happen. I think just to say those thanks, and thanks for members for making it easy for me to deal with these pretty contentious and complex pieces of legislation, sir. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'll make the third reading.
Is the matter seconded for third reading?
Yes, sir.
Deputy St Martin.
Well, thank you, sir. And I just want to speak very briefly to endorse everything the Minister's just said. In my 10 plus years in the Assembly, fishing is the most complicated thing that I've ever had to try to deal with. Dealing with the French, with whether that's national or local, domestic, with Guernsey, with the UK, and of course within our own fishing fleet itself, there will be always a number of different opinions, and we've heard a lot of those over the last few months. But the Minister's absolutely right. This is an extensive and outstanding piece of work that we have in front of us today. And I only just want to agree with the Minister and thank the team at Marine Resources and also those specialists within the Law Officers Department who've come forward with this work. For a small team, it is a major undertaking to do something like this, and I'd just like to thank them on my behalf. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. The Deputy of Greville.
Thank you, sir. In the third reading, I would just like to encourage the Minister to take up the two issues I've mentioned, in particular the one where our fishermen are discriminated. They are discriminated in the fact that our catches are deemed as non-EU, and therefore when landing in France have to go through an awful lot more paperwork than our French counterparts. And that can be for the fish caught in our waters. So I would urge him to take this up and have a look at it. Likewise, with the point that Senator Ferguson raised about the fishing licenses and the fees, again, it's discriminatory because the foreign vessels, I don't believe, are charged, and certainly if they are charged for licenses, then they get substantial assistance from the EU to help them pay for it. So at the moment, there is not a level playing field. So if he's going to say that this is non-discriminatory and he cannot discriminate, he needs to look at those issues. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy Greville. Does any other member wish to speak in third reading? No other member wishes to speak in third reading. I'd like to close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thanks, sir. I thank very much Deputy Luce for his very kind words, and I'm sure the team will very much appreciate it. And I know, of course, Deputy Luce has much longer experience in fishing matters than me, and so you know, his words carry very, very big weight with me. I'm relatively new to this, but I certainly will do my best. And also, I know my Assistant Minister, Deputy Guida, he chairs the Marine Resources Panel. We both have good relations with the different parts of our fishing community. There are disagreements within, and our chart is still to carry on. Of course, what I will be doing, frankly, it's always difficult under our new government structure when responsibilities are split, and so I don't have responsibilities for economic aid or economic support for the fishing industry to help them achieve that transition. But I certainly will take this as a mandate from states to be communicated to the Economic Development Minister and his assistant ministers to back up their officers with the work they're doing and convert the work that's going into systems of financial support. The one issue which I think I can, which will fall under my ministry, sorry, the Environment Minister's ministry, it's not mine personally, is the fees. And I will certainly undertake to give full and thorough consideration to that issue, and I'm sure we'll be coming back to them and through the appropriate processes. I'm not sure whether fees are defined by order or what they are, but I'm sure there needs to be political input. On the first point that the Deputy Grouville said about the fair treatment of our produce from our boats being landed into France is treated as a third country, whereas the EU boats extracting produce from our seas landed into France counts as EU. I think that's something which, and therefore there are customs issues, and I think I will certainly take that as a mandate from today's agreement of these regulations to the Brexit ministerial group, where not just the Economic Development Minister, but the Chief Minister attends, and the External Affairs Minister and the Treasury Minister, who has responsibility for customs, and I will make sure that issue is on our agenda and taken up by them, sir. That's, I think, the best I can do on those points there. They're all good points. Sir, I propose the third reading.
Very much, Minister. Ask Greffier to put a vote into the link. Open the voting and ask members to vote. Members have had the opportunity of casting their votes. Ask the Greffier to close the voting. Regulations have been adopted in third reading, 38 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstention on the link, and a further 3 votes pour noted in the chat. That concludes public business for this meeting, and I invite the Chair of PPC to propose the arrangements for public business at future meetings. Deputy Alves.
Thank you, sir. There's been one change to the arrangement of public business from what was listed on the consolidated order paper, and that is the draft road traffic number 68 Jersey regulations 202, that's P39 2021, which has been lodged, and the regulations have been listed for debate on the 8th of June. There are no other changes, and the next meeting on the 11th of May should not be as long as this week's meetings. So, sir, with that change, I propose the arrangement of public business for future meetings.
Very well. Do any members have any observations on the arrangement for future meetings? Well, then that is adopted. And that concludes the business of the Assembly, and we stand adjourned until the Liberation Day meeting on the 9th of May.